Hello, everyone, and welcome to the start of our coverage of Surviving Bloomington Season 6, Order versus Chaos. Thank you so much for being here with us. My name is Drew. I will be in and out this season helping with coverage of the season and also was on the season alongside my co-star and co-host, Steven. Hi, Steven.
Hello, it's great to be back doing some Surviving Bloomington coverage. Drew, I am sure we'll give some very unbiased coverage as the season progresses.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
After all, we all know that I win, right?
Ourselves. Yeah,
no
we're
spoilers?
definitely not just going to talk about ourselves.
We're gonna be like, Casey, there's a severe lack of Steven and Drew content this episode. What's going on?
It's true. Well, we need to talk about the Drew content actually because I have things to say.
Well, Drew, is not your favorite scene of you just pounding the dirt with a stick?
Listen. He included what I was doing. I was looking for idols. Leave me alone.
I think I made a GIF of that in the past. I'm sure I can resurface that and then put it back online for the fans to see.
I did write down in my notes. I have a specific note. WTF is that clip of me with a stick. So there, on top of that, which is obviously the scene stealer of the episode, but we have so much more to talk about with this episode. Should we just jump in?
Well, let's take it from the top. And I think we should, and like by the top being not chapter 1, let's start the prologue.
The prologue, Hope.
Which you said you're doing a draft with your friends for the season, correct?
It's true. Mm-hmm.
And you're giving points for the naming of the episodes and the sections, or just episodes?
That is something that we will have to discuss because we definitely did points for episode titles, but I did not know that there would be a prologue as well. So that is something that we will have to discuss.
Because Tyler should get some credit here for giving the prologue title, Hope.
Tyler gave us a lot this episode, and I'm very excited to talk about it. But I did not actually connect the dots on that until my third viewing of the episode. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm with it now. I see what we're doing.
Well, I mean, we have to talk about the opening confessional. The season is kicked off with John.
It is.
And in true John fashion, it's John saying like, hey, I'm a vet. I see some vets that are going to address me. I see some newbies I can roll over. And where's the bathroom? I got to go.
Gotta go.
Other words.
Which is hilarious because that actually leads to some drama later in the episode, just him having to go to the bathroom that early on.
I think that's a good way I think it's a fitting confessional to start this season. That's all I can say.
I agree. I think that we lead in immediately on a chaotic note with John, and I think that the season may be called Order versus Chaos, but really I think the season could just be called Chaos versus Chaos because we hit the gas pretty hard in this first episode.
Boy, the Order tribe is a hot mess.
It's true. I think also, notable in this first episode is going to be some of these other sort of character player intros that we get in the beginning. Lots of nerves. People are very nervous. Steven, were you nervous?
Are you not nervous coming into these games?
Oh no, I'm terrified.
I think you said I'm nervous about my mouth and face.
My mouth and my face.
Hiding what I think it shows. So you yourself were nervous.
I was very nervous. My only previous live game experience, aside from a couple of offshoot one-day games with friends, has been Surviving Realfoot Season 10, in which I was the first boot. So I felt like I was coming in good reason to be nervous. I did not know who many people are. We'll get to those connections kind of later. I did not do a ton of research into the cast, and you let us know very quickly that you did do research into it.
But I'm no Melanie because my research paled in comparison to hers.
It's true. What else do we get? I think it's very interesting that we get this sort of player intro sequence interspersed with footage of the reward challenge.
I do have one quick meandering thing I want to point out before we dig more into the episode. Do you remember that we actually podcast together the first episode of the last season of Surviving Bloomington?
I did.
All right, and so this is kind of, I'm just gonna remember this is kind of a fun full circle here we have going on, a good way to kick it off again. So you'll always have to be the first guest at the very minimum for every.
There we go. Yeah, every season I'm the first guest if I'm not hosting.
But back to your actual question is, I thought it was a really nice way to. I thought the prologue was a very nice way to both introduce us to. I think we got at least half the cast on
I
top of.
counted, and I believe it was out of the 18 of us, 10 of us got confessionals in that little intro sequence.
Yeah, and so like I love that we got to meet at least half the cast on top of kind of working in some of the opening twists. And I love like the fact that like the challenge was worked in as well. So you already have some action going on. Like, because I feel like in other live games I play, you sometimes you'll have just like a bunch of these opening, like, here I am, good to meet you in a row. And like
my name is this. I'm this old from this place.
Yeah.
This is my job.
Yeah.
I'm nervous but excited. My strategy is like it's
so,
a lot of that. Yeah.
And this was a nice way to intersperse it. And so like while not everyone does get their package intro at the start, a large chunk of the cast does, and the remaining players kind of get their package intro later on.
I would like to talk about this challenge, if that is an option.
Oh yeah, because we kind of let's give the behind the scenes of it, right? Because we've played this challenge, but you get to see only like fragments of it. I think it's very clear Chaos dominates, but please talk more.
We did dominate a little bit. I mean, we were ahead from the start, but basically this challenge was sort of, so there are 9 people on a tribe. There is a table with a pyramid of blocks that each tribe is going to choose 2 people to hold a slingshot, like a large slingshot, and then 2 other people to alternate firing sandbags, I believe it was.
Yeah, small sandbags.
Or like bean bags.
They were substantial enough. I thought they were going to break the window.
Yeah, I remember that being a concern.
And like substantial enough that you did not want to be in the firing path of when they really got shot.
Right. So each tribe chose 2 people to hold the slingshot, 2 people to alternate launching, and the other 5 members of the tribe were sort of retrieving the sandbags, helping them get back. Do you recall at all what your tribe's decision-making process was for this challenge?
No, I don't really recall the decision making, like, because I think we had John and Riley as the ones actually firing the beanbags, and this is bad. My like go-to in these games is never volunteer, for better or worse. And so I don't recall how we chose them. I think they probably stepped up.
Yeah, I recall from our process that Marshawn actively volunteered to launch them. So we were like, cool, like that's fine. The rest of us were kind of like, I don't know, it's like a learning process. And Kim kind of was like, well, if nobody else is going to do it, I will. And I volunteered to hold one side. And then I believe it was Seth that volunteered to hold the other side, just because Seth was like, I feel like I might be able to get used to this quickly. And Seth guided me a lot in like, oh, this is how you should hold it, kind of thing. But Chaos got ahead very quickly, and we maintained our lead throughout the challenge. That challenge was, how long do you think it was? 10 minutes long?
Yeah, I mean, I think we knocked over a couple blocks, but I think John and Riley never quite got the feel of it, to be honest.
Yeah. And there was a lot of fear about breaking windows because there was a building right behind where we were launching those things. It was a great challenge. And then the reward, I don't think it's explicitly stated. There's like a little clip of me kind of going through the basket. But Chaos does ultimately win. And the reward was a bunch of bananas, like a physical bunch of bananas, apples, trail mix, some bubbles, a hammock, and then I think some additional rope.
Oh, no, you're missing something. You also got the Magic 8-Ball.
Oh, and the Magic 8-Ball. That's right. I completely forgot.
Yeah. I know this because Casey put it in there as an Easter egg in case my tribe won the reward. He's like, wouldn't it be fun? Because I obsessed over the Magic 8-Ball all last season. And spoiler alert, all I do is ruin Casey's expectations continually this season of little things he wanted to have happen.
Yeah. So we got that. And I very intentionally was the one who grabbed that basket and definitely went through it when we got back to camp. You can see that little clip of me talking about the bubbles, but I definitely go through it to see if there's any advantages or notes or anything in there. So that was fun. There was I feel like we're going to talk about a lot of things that weren't shown. But there is a point in which so the Chaos gets back to camp. They mention this later, how everybody splits off into their like things that they're good at. So we have a couple people working on the fire. It was mostly like Kim and Marshawn. We have a group of like 5 setting up the tent, and me and Rachel are standing there like, you want to set up the hammock, I guess, since everybody else is already doing
things. On the
things.
hammock together.
Yeah. So me and Rachel start setting up the hammock. She's like, "Oh, I don't know how to put it up. Can you show me?" I'm like, "Oh, sure. Yeah, I own like one of this brand. I can like teach you." I'm going through the bag. I reach into the hammock bag because I'm like, if there's something hiding, it's going to be in here. I feel a piece of paper. I pull it out, put it in my pocket, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go like use the bathroom or something.
Is it the instructions?
So I leave. I'm like pulling a camera person over. I'm like, oh, Rachel, just do this. I'll be right back to like let you know like if it'll work or not. Just like tie this around this thing, whatever. So I go, I pull it out of my pocket, and it was instructions on how to set the hammock up. And I was so mad. And that's where you see like the clip later of me coming back being like, this will work. This is good. Because I had left for a few minutes to check what it was while Rachel was setting it up. But anyways.
I mean, if only you checked the rice, Drew. If only you checked the rice. But who knows? I want to ask your thoughts about the opening theme when we were told that it's order versus chaos. Did you immediately know this is where I'm going to be?
I don't know, because I feel like I can go either way. We were told that we were sorted into tribes based on a couple different things, personality being like the forefront, but also our like career, how we present ourselves in our interviews and applications. I definitely think that my application process was very chaotic. When I shot my video, I was holding my phone in front of me, like walking around my apartment because I don't do well sitting still. And so it was a lot of like vlogging style almost when me walking around my apartment. But I don't know. I think maybe personality wise, I lean chaotic, but I'm a very organized person. My job, I mean, I work in the ER, so I'm very like, my job is very organized. So I felt like I could go either way, but I definitely understood why I was on chaos based on my application process and personality.
Because what's interesting is like, for the Order tribe, we all sat down. We all said, why do you think you're on the Order tribe? And then we see a little piece of that, especially with Jamie describing why they are on the Order tribe. We hear Jamie's story a lot in regards to that. For Chaos, because Chaos has Order, you're like, whatever, in Survivor, but Chaos has a different connotation in Survivor. And it's not like you all kind of sat around, it's like, why are you chaotic? Like, what chaos do you bring to the fold?
Right. There was a lot of like, when we were talking about it, it was a lot of like, well, I guess I'm here because of my personality, because I'm extroverted, or like Rachel told us that she knew she was on this tribe because she calls herself like a chaos manager or something with her kids. I mean, there were a couple people that we could tell immediately while they were on the tribe, like Marshawn and Kim, just like they have very bright personalities that are kind of like all over the place in the sense of like, it's very quick topic changes. It's very like stream of thought communication with them. So there were a couple people who were like, yeah, this makes sense.
I want to talk a little bit about the opening sequence because Drew, I'm not gonna lie, I'm jealous. I like the chaos music better than the order music in the opening sequence.
I'm like, yes, he put me at the perfect spot. As soon as that heroic,
you get that crescendo, right?
My face. No, that's hilarious. Yeah. What are your thoughts on not only the opening sequence but also the music for the episode as a whole? We didn't use any Survivor music.
Yeah, because I was thinking back to the past season where there was still some Survivor music being brought in and get some other stuff, and this was no Survivor music, which I thought the music choice worked really well. It was interesting. Order's music was more classical, slower beats, contemplative, while like Chaos sometimes was just jazz.
Which is, I mean, that's very much what our vibe was the whole time. I mean, you can kind of see in this episode that our tribe was very like vibe focused. We just were very cohesive very quickly, and I don't think that most of us thought too much into the theme. We were just like, okay, these are the people I'll be around, so let's just adapt to them. Whereas it seems like you guys kind of came in. Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, I want to have this come from Valencia. I can see all your perspective tribes based off your podcasting styles. It seems a bit.
Yeah.
So maybe you have a order versus chaos, but only podcasters. Maybe that's what the future.
I'm scared to think about who would be with me on that tribe. But Steven, what were your thoughts on being on order?
I mean, so I'm an accountant. My favorite activities is organizing bookshelves. And so like I was like, yeah, this seems right. This seems about right. And like I was happier because I like blue as a better color than red. So I was in the blue tribe. So that was also a plus. So I was it made sense for me to be on the order tribe. I wasn't very one of the things I think whenever you have like these kind of versus kind of things like heroes versus villains or brains versus brawn versus beauty or order versus chaos, I feel like it's gonna reward whoever plays the middle the best and not the extremes. And so I was thinking like, man, I think this game will help like whoever's the most chaotic and orderly tribe or the most orderly on the chaos tribe. And yeah, that was one of the things that was kind of at my mind at the very beginning.
I think that makes sense. We get a little confessional from Mackenzie where she says, I don't want chaos. Like, I'm glad to be on the order tribe. I need order and organization while I can kind of build up what I'm doing in this game. And then later we can bring in the chaos when we need to.
Yeah. The other confession set up was I'm just going to call him Big Matt, who was my daddy, Matthew. Was basically, he was kind of saying, I have a chaotic side, but I really want order to start with. You guns for order. He really tries to make something really orderly happen to start. Yep. And then I have a confessionals not showed where, given the direction of the episode, I gotta say I think John's the most chaotic person on our tribe.
Yeah, I like quickly analyzing my tribe. I assumed that probably myself and maybe Rachel were the most orderly of our tribe. Like I said, I could tell very quickly that Kim and Marshawn were going to be chaotic people. But I think that's a good point in playing the middle. Okay, well, we kind of get to know people through these first sections. I don't know. Let me see. Is there anything else that stood out to me? We get a lot of Mackenzie and a lot of Jamie over at the Order Tribe. They bond very quickly. We'll jump into talking about bounties in a second, but we find out at some point that Jamie tells Mackenzie that Mackenzie is their bounty. Mackenzie's like, "Oh, great, this is fine, like whatever."
Let's talk about bounties now. So the bounty twist is every player drew a name, and if you were able to vote out that person you drew, you would get at least one safety key, which is their version of shots in the dark, but can be turned into an extra vote at 4 safety keys or an idle at 6 safety keys.
Can you clarify something for me? Yeah. I don't think I actually thought about this. If you vote out your bounty and they don't have any keys,
you got one. You always got one.
Do you get a +1 on top of?
No. So you always get a minimum of 1. So because one of the things I was thinking of doing is like, if I want to disincentivize someone going bounty hunting, I can give away my key and say, yeah, vote me out, but I have nothing. But if you have no key, they were always guaranteed to get a key as a result of voting you out.
Sure. I would say
this is actually a fair point for Mackenzie. Did you have to be the one voting them out?
You had to. So the rules were you had to cast a vote for them at the tribal they went home at.
Yeah.
I did not realize in game that the bounties that we drew were for our own tribes. I thought that it was everyone, that we could draw anyone. So I was like freaking out. Like, what if I draw a bounty that's not on my tribe and then they get voted out?
Well, did Order or Chaos draw bounties first? I thought Chaos did.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
But I did not realize that we were drawing names only from our own tribes.
That was my guess, because I was one of the last people from my tribe to go, and there was only a couple names up. I can't remember if y'all or Order went first. What really is interesting is that if you draw your own name, you get to pick whoever you want. And it's like, I'm going to say it's a little overpowered, because not only no one has you as a bounty, but you get to select your bounty. And now, I also think kind of what Mackenzie's getting at, you could have selected someone in the other tribe, not sure why. And you see both Danny and Tyler get to choose around bounties as a result, which is interesting.
Yes. I think that getting to choose your bounty, I can see how you would think that it's somewhat overpowered, but also we're in the first round. When we drew bounties, what happened kind of behind the scenes is we go out there, we get put in our tribes, we do the reward challenge, he sends us out, we then get pulled back because he was like, oh, I forgot about this thing. And so we come back and we're like, what do you want? Like, we're trying to go back to camp. Like, And he's like, we're doing bounties. And then we draw bounties. We go back to camp and we read the full extent of like the bounty twist. So we had not even really gotten to mingle solely within our tribes at that point, which I think kind of balances out the getting to choose your own.
Well, you get some very entertaining scenes of people drawing their bounties. Marshawn's like, who's
Mulaney.
this? Mulaney, and then you have Mackenzie's like, I don't know who this Steven guy is. He can go home for all I care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tyler believed in the heart of the cards.
That was amazing. Like the Yu-Gi-Oh reference. Yes.
I don't know anything about Yu-Gi-Oh, but I feel like I learned something about Yu-Gi-Oh from that. If you believe in the heart of the cards.
From there.
Exactly. Yeah. So Tyler chooses Marshawn, which I think was an interesting choice. And then Danny kind of goes through his list of people, or of their list of people that they don't want to pick. And my name was not said. Danny, what's the T? But anyways,
Seth, right?
Ultimately Danny chooses Seth. I think the people that Danny did not list were me, Seth, and Marshawn. So I'm assuming it came down to us three. But ultimately Danny chooses Marshawn.
Because what's interesting is while we haven't had tribal interactions, we all met like 7:15 in the morning or 7:30 in the morning at KC's house, and you're kind of like, it takes like a good hour or two before the game formally starts. So like, put your stuff away, rules, forms, whatnot. So you're talking and chatting and getting to know people. Like, I had really good conversations with Melanie. We ended up on different tribes.
Yeah, we had like, I want to say it was between 30 minutes and an hour that morning before the game, because the night before we were all pretty much sequestered. There may have been
a hotel.
Yeah, people were either in hotels, the local people were at home, and then other people who kind of flew in and were like, hey, can you provide housing? Were mostly split up. There were maybe groups of two. For example, Mackenzie and I both stayed at Casey's apartment the night before, but like Casey was very like adamant, like, don't talk about the game. So we talked, but like not about any strategy or anything like that. And then that morning we had maybe 30 minutes to an hour of like group mingling where we were all being like brought in separately.
I love standing around in a circle awkwardly, everyone kind of like making small talk and just like, all right.
I have a very vivid memory of me and Alex standing in the corner, like giggling at everyone and how awkward people were being, like trying to read body language, being like, oh, everybody's uncomfortable.
Your season of Reelfoot, did it have that pre-game lunch?
No. When we arrived that morning at Reelfoot, we were
sequestered your season rooms, right?
We were told to arrive. They gave us all arrival times, I believe. No, wait. They just told us to arrive like between 9 and 10. At any time between 9 and 10, we got there. They had predetermined our sequester rooms, and we were sequestered in rooms of 2 to 4 people, and we were not allowed to talk to each other.
Okay. Yeah, because it reminded me of my season Reelfoot where we had a full lunch ahead of time. So it's just you and your 23 new best friends, and you're like, oh, we talk to everyone.
No, we were sequestered when we went outside to like turn our phones in, like send out those last Facebook posts, like, hey, watch these live streams or whatever. They were like, do not look at each other, do not talk to each other.
So, Drew, had you selected your own name, who would you have selected as your bounty? If you put...
I probably would have just looked at who have I not talked to at all, and who do I think might not be the best challenge performer. Honestly, and I would not have chosen Kim, who is who I actually drew, because Kim had immunity at the first tribal, plus Kim had that tribal advantage, which we'll get into in a moment.
Yep.
I probably would have chose Rachel, is my like gut instinct of who I would have chosen at that time, because Rachel and I did not talk very much in that like hour before. And I like physically, Rachel is the smallest on our tribe. Steven, what would you have done?
So I think the 4 people I'd probably be deliberating between, just because I hadn't interact with them or talk with them. It would be either Riley, Big Matt, I can't do Mackenzie because she has the award thing. So Riley, Mackenzie, Alex, maybe just because I hadn't had any interactions with them at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
spent time talking with Nina that morning, so I was feeling good about Nina. Like Jamie and I played the mold together.
Yeah.
I was kind of keen on working with John because I really liked the content I'd seen him in Outlast and his bio. I was like, all right, I think I'd really like to work with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Yeah, it's a hard decision, and I don't envy the people that had to make it. It seemed like Tyler kind of made up his mind pretty fast, but Danny did kind of what I would have done and be like, okay, let me work backwards. Who do I not want to pick? But let's get into this donation player advantage. So we find out, of course, this game is for charity. So we do a fundraiser before the season where we are raising money. Not only for production, but also for the homeless community in Bloomington, Indiana. And there was an advantage promise for the person on each tribe who got the most donations. Kim got it for Chaos and Mackenzie for Order. And it's basically you have immunity at your first tribal council that you attend. So obviously we know Order went to tribal. Kim theoretically could be immune into the merge. Because it was the first tribal that you attend, you are immune at. And then also there's a puzzle box that if you get it open, there's essentially an advantage that says, hey, you have a challenge advantage. You can use it only in the tribal phase, but it can't be used at the first immunity challenge. You pick a player on your tribe and their portion of the challenge will be made easier.
And so we see Nina on the Order tribe and Danny on the Chaos tribe be the ones that tackle and open those puzzle boxes.
Yeah.
And like the puzzle boxes took like
30 seconds.
No, ours we spent a couple of minutes on it. But it's like a 2 or 3 step puzzle box.
Yeah.
I have one that's going to take me several hours to do, and that's probably not nice to give someone the game a several hour style puzzle box.
I don't know. I kind of like that. But maybe I'm sadistic.
I don't think I have it on hand.
Stephen, what are your thoughts on this advantage? Well, I guess it's like a dual layer advantage, the immunity and the tribal advantage.
Well, I'm sure I can tell you so many more thoughts in future episodes, Drew. But my initial impression of these advantages was like, this seems fair, a challenge advantage. And this means not only does Mackenzie have immunity at the first tribal council, in my eyes, Mackenzie's immune until that advantage is played. Because I want Mackenzie to use that advantage for when I'm going to benefit from it. So Mackenzie is a key person in this tribe, and she can't go home because she has what can hopefully be a way to victory in the future.
Yeah, I liked this advantage. We knew going in that the people who got the most donations would be immune at their first tribal. We did not know about the tribal advantage aspect. Personally, I was not thrilled because Kim was my bounty. So I'm like, okay, well, that's another round that I have to delay. And if we don't use it, then anyways.
So were you actively looking to cash in your bounty as early as possible?
I think I was kind of like, well, ideally I would be able to do this, but I know that I can't, so I might as well make the best of a bad situation.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So I was like, well, I might as well just work with Kim.
Because I think in the past seasons of Bloomington, the way this challenge, the donation contestant would work is your tribe, if they voted you out, would be disadvantaged at future challenges. And so I Bloomington players, Casey, correct me wrong, I believe the way it worked is the donation players, as long as they were in the game on your tribe, things were normal. But if your tribe voted them out, there was kind of a penalty that would happen as a result, which maybe dissuaded people to voting them out. I think that's how it worked in previous seasons. So I like this way much better.
Yeah, I'm not mad at it. I mean, personally, I was like, ugh, my bounty target is immune. Yeah. But
but yeah, overall, like I didn't mind it. And there's Redemption Island in play. Nina's the first person to Redemption Island, and the donations come into play there as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We'll get there when we get there.
So we'll get there when we get there.
Yep. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about these tribes. The stuff that we get kind of before the immunity challenge. Torch decoration. Let's talk about torch decoration. I love this. I love that Casey is doing this, where we chose our torches at the beginning of the game, and the torches were all torches from former players. I believe most of them had 1 or 2 former players names on them. And then we were given some like twine and some beads and some paint to make them our own. And we each got to customize our torch and add our legacy into the torches.
Whose torch did you grab?
Mine had 2 previous owners. I don't remember.
I believe I had Jordan's season, her non-All-Star winning season torch. I think I had her torch from her first season, I want to say.
I had some, all I know is I was like, I don't know who either of these people are. And one of the production members was like, well, one of them was like second boot and the other one made like final 5. So you got a mixed bag.
See, I didn't even think about asking production. Like, hey, what's the pedigree of this torch, please? I need to know before I commit myself.
Because somebody else, I don't remember who it was on my tribe, was like, "Oh, this torch has good vibes," because I think it was a previous winner or runner up or something.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know what vibes mine has.
I wanted Hannah's torch, but someone else walked out with it.
We do see that John V gets Boogie's torch, which the episode is dedicated to Boogie, so that was great.
I think in terms of decorating, the 2 things that stand out is, 1, I suck at decorating, so I just slapped my nameplate on it and called it a life. Other people did more decorating than I did. I was just like, yep, just write my name.
We did see Brady do some extracurricular decoration.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. Some extracurricular decoration. We see Big Matt dub himself Daddy Matt. And so that's the origin of it. And then, do you want to talk about? I don't know if it's going to be the episodes, but some of the Marshawn and the Key decorations, perhaps, or just like some of the. Is that something you think we should hold off on?
All I know, I think I know where you're going with this. All I know is that there was a torch or multiple torches that players got that had as previous decor on them keys, and there was debate at the camps of, are these keys like safety keys, like the ones that we were told about as an advantage that we each start with. And so there was a lot of debating going on back and forth.
I'm going to get a key as an example. Hold on.
Yeah, there was a lot of debating back and forth on, are these keys just decoration, or are these safety keys that we can
This feels appropriate for show. This feels appropriate for show and tell, but this is like the kind of key we had. It's like, and they're all different designs, but
as safety keys,
small metal keys that like clearly didn't open anything, but these were like what we had to play as our shots in the dark. And the keys on the torches were kind of large and wooden, weren't they?
They were larger, but I believe they were metallic.
Okay.
And so I know specifically Marshawn had one that had a key on it. So there was, I mean, eventually we go to production and we're like, hey, are these safety keys? And Casey was like, no, those are just decor. They're not the same style of keys.
Yeah, this one has some fun postseason discussions. Casey's like, I think I'll need to change what these things are next season in case like there's still some hidden out there that people find and they're like, what's this? Oh,
yeah. Let's see what else we have. Riley started fire.
And your tribe,
Kim,
yeah.
It was Kim and Marshawn. We actually were kind of like, so the group of 5 went to do the tent. Me and Rachel are doing the hammock, and Kim and Marshawn, I believe, were the ones working on fire. I know Kim, but I believe Marshawn was the other one. We get it going. Kim gets it going in like less than 5 minutes. And then production comes into the camp and they're like, oh, why did you guys make fire? And we're like, oh, like what do you mean?
It's Survivor.
It's Survivor. And they're like, oh, well, what are you going to use it for? And we were all kind of like, oh. So we like immediately put it out because we realized we did not need it at that point. But yeah, Kim was all over the fire. Kim was our fire master.
I'm not gonna lie, the scene with Kim like using the machete is like, oh my gosh, that looks so dangerous.
No, it was. Just wait till next episode, because I think next episode it gets worse because our flint breaks. But it's fine. So we get that. Let me see, what else do I have? Yeah, Riley, and then with assistance from Mackenzie, it seems like started fire for you guys. How quickly was that done?
I feel that so like when we got to camp, we kind of broke up into groups. There was the fire team, which is Riley. I think was the lead of that. I was because I'm tall. I was helping put up the tarp, and then there was a group of people putting up the tents. I think they struggled with that. I remember we get the tarp up, and this isn't in camera, but they kind of like I get the tarp up. People are finished with the tent. I'm like, hey, who needs water? And I'm like, who wants some of the water? And John's like, I'll go with you. So John and I take some water bottles. We go up the water well, and that ends up sparking some things later this season. And to be fair, like Nina's right. Like I went up and said, like, hey John, I want to work with you. I make that overture to John and that first of the water roll just because it's a fast game. Like I feel like I need to hit the ground running because who knows what can happen. We may go to tribal council in only a couple hours.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that Riley made fire having only practiced once the day before and without Flint. What did you say?
Impressive.
Yeah,
I want those skills.
That's crazy to me. And like Kim making fire also was kind of crazy because if you know Kim, like Kim is not an outdoors woman. Like that's not Kim. So it was fun. It was shocking how fast we got it, but let me see what else we got.
I have a question too.
Yeah.
What do you think of the cry-ons for this season? When it says like Drew, he, him, bounty, keys, like that, all that information. It has like it looks kind of like Born Identity style, right? With how it kind of comes in.
I don't know about all that. But I like having information that I don't have to keep up with myself because it's given to me constantly. So I like it. For now, I like it. It's possible that if there are more like advantages or like when idols may or may not come into play, when individual immunity comes into play, when people's bounties start getting voted out, I think it could be a lot more complicated, but I'm not mad at it. I like having the information displayed to me.
Because we're getting the bounties and like, oh man, I need to go write this down and everything like that. But then it's like, it starts showing everyone's bounties like, oh, what a dream this is. It's gonna make life much easier.
Yeah, I like it. I think that it was very thoughtful.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Casey.
Yes. Quick things that happen at Chaos in that first little compilation that we get. Tyler states that he's not sure why he's on Chaos. I don't know if I believe that because it seems like the common theme between the rest of us was like, oh, we're going to pretend we don't know why we're here, but we know. Like Rachel says, like, I know why I'm here. We also get Tyler telling us that he wants to be physically with the majority of people at the beginning of the game, which I think is very interesting because if you're physically with a majority of people, you're getting more socialization in with more people. So that was a fun confessional from Tyler.
I mean, so my favorite Tyler moments is he's like, I think Seth played Surviving Maine, which Seth is like, this is your tribe. It's about half LRG veterans, half new players. Seth has been on the video crew for Surviving Bloomington in the past, but he's never competed in a Survivor game. So this is Seth's first go in, and like Tyler's like, I'm clocking him. He's played this before.
Which I love Ethan, who's the main camera guy, being like, wait, are you going to tell him? If you're going to tell him, please tell me because that's fun. And Tyler's like, yeah, okay, I'll tell you.
And I don't think, at least in this episode, we don't get to see a payoff of that. But I mean, so let's talk a little bit about the connections. That exist in this world. And like, we'll talk about only the ones that are like
mentioned,
and because like the one we're not going to talk about, John V mentions like, hey,
I have an ace
in the hole, and that will be revealed in the future. We're not going to talk about that, but let's talk about the ones that are discussed.
I wrote down a list of the ones that are mentioned. So Kim tells us that she and Seth know each other outside of the game. Neither of them have ever played a live reality game before. They both know each other from living locally, but they're both pretending they don't know each other, and they're both on Chaos. Danny and Tyler tell us that they played together in Survivor BC 9.
Yep.
And they want to work together. They had both vocalized wanting to work with each other. Obviously, we have Steven mentioning that you do podcasts, so you kind of know who's who in the LRG world.
And specifically when it comes to podcasting, what matters is I had interviewed you, right? I interviewed you for Real Foot and also podcast with you in an episode of Bloomington.
And the Mole.
And the Mole, you've interviewed me, yeah. So we've had some, we've never met in person, but we've had some podcast interactions. Rachel was a guest with me the previous season for Bloomington. And this matters because Melanie has watched everything, I believe.
Yes, Melanie tells us that she looked up every single person on the cast. She found out what they've been on. She watched podcasts. She told me, she told me after the game, she was like, "Oh yeah, like all 3 of the podcasts that you and Steven did together, I watched to see like what was going on." Melanie did her research.
I mean, it's great having a fan.
Yeah. We also have both Mackenzie and John telling us that they separately have some LRG experience and they plan to use that to their advantage. John says, like, "Oh, I see some people out here who've watched me play." Mackenzie tells us that she, in her past LRG games, has had it comes across as really likable, and she's scared that people might know that she's likable, which I'm like, that's an interesting observation. Being scared that people think you're likable, but you're also trying to be likable is interesting.
Yeah. In some contexts, I think at the time I knew that Mackenzie had played Survival Challenge 2022, I'm gonna say, and she has a tough run in that game. I'm pulling up the wiki real fast to make sure I'm not misquoting it. Forgive me, Mackenzie, if I have grossly misquoted which season you played. Yeah, so she played Survival Challenge 2022, and she is the 5th boot in that season.
Okay.
Granted, she goes through tribal councils, and so like
that's a rough one.
And so it is a rough starting tribe to be on.
For me personally, going into the game, I did not research people because I wanted to try and build a little bit more authentic relationships. I knew who you were, obviously, from our interactions. I had done a podcast with Jamie before about the mole, and then I knew who John was, but had never interacted with him in any kind of way.
So for me, like, I'd seen the first 3 episodes. Yeah, Lindsay's is like, he's intrigued everyone. Yeah, no. So like, I'd seen Danny play the first 3 episodes of Survivor BC9. I played Mole with Jamie, and so I was close with Jamie. I'd seen John play out last. I kind of recognized, took me a second to recognize Mackenzie from Survival Challenge. I talked to you, knew you from Realfoot. I knew of Melanie because she played Survival Challenge as well. And then Rachel, because we had talked once, and Tyler played BC9. But we're the secret was the image files in the website for the contestants. While our first names were there in like the page, the image files had our full names. So I was like, I can go to town on this thing. And it was useful more to say like, hey, who's like local versus who's not, and that was kind of helpful. Kind of guess it's all right. If you're not local, you probably have done something before.
Let's just run through locals real quick because most of the locals have never played in LRG before. Yeah. So on my tribe, the locals were Kim, Seth,
Marshawn,
semi-local. I would say Marshawn would be more grouped in with like knows previous players, like is connected with previous players. But Marshawn is like relatively local.
Yeah.
So yeah, on my tribe, yeah, it's just Kim, Marshawn, Seth.
Yeah, so on my tribe, I have Alex. Alex has played the One Day Survivor Indiana game several times, but like this is her first multi-day game. Additionally, we have scrolling through, we have Matt, or Little Matt, the difference from Big Matt. So he is local. He works at he works at the university. We also have Riley, who's local, and Nina, who's local.
Yes. So that may or may not come into play at some point in the season. I mean, obviously with Nina and Riley, it didn't because they voted for each other. But we will move on. Let me see. Before immunity challenge, is there anything else? So John considers key strategies, safety key strategies. He tells us that he is considering telling Riley that he has Riley as his bounty, but he's not sure yet about that. Obviously, Jamie tells Mackenzie that they have her as their bounty. Mackenzie's like, cool, don't have to worry about that. Mackenzie says, if you're really that concerned about it, like, I'll just give you the key. I like, just don't vote me out.
And that's the problem, right? Because if you give them the key, then they'll go with them anyways. You get 2 keys.
Yeah. Jamie discusses stepping out of their comfort zone and going into this game not ever having played a live game that has a voting element, and having a lot of anxiety about it, but deciding to step out of their comfort zone anyway, because being a therapist, they tell people daily to step out of their comfort zone, and now they are walking the talk, which is the name of the episode.
A couple of questions for you in particular. Were you ever thinking about telling him, hey, you're my bounty, let's work together?
I actually don't remember if I told Kim or not. So
Okay.
it was definitely something I considered, but I don't remember if I actually told Kim or not.
Yeah, because I tell John within this first round, I think during the strategizing.
Oh, interesting.
From the first
Okay.
round. So John knows that I have him as bounty, and I use it as a way to kind of gain trust. Like, hey, John, I want to work with you. Here's this information. You are my bounty. I have no desire to act upon that. I want to work with you.
Yeah.
So he has that information for me.
I have no idea. I don't recall if I told anyone. I know I at minimum considered it, but I was not happy about having Kim as my bounty.
So the most important question I have to ask you is, did your mom like the message that you sent her?
So she is watching the episode in chunks over her lunch breaks at work. What I do know is that she told me today, she said, I'm rooting for Steven. And I said, oh, why is that? And she said, Steven's an accountant, because my mom's an accountant. And
Yes.
I said, I'm your son. And she said, yes, but Steven's an accountant.
Woo!
So I did tell her on the phone today, because she didn't start watching until today. And I said, there is an Audra Harris shout out in this episode. And she said, I'm scared. I said, well, you'll have to watch to see if it's a good or a bad thing. So I don't know if she's made it that far into the episode or not, but she liked you from the moment you said you were an accountant. So I guess you're her winner pick.
Us accountants have to stick together.
Yeah. Jumping back to Chaos Tribe, and then after that we'll get into the immunity challenge. Chaos Tribe. Seth, we get our first Seth stuff, with Seth saying that he is worried about playing too fast and that he's already having some game conversations, but knowing from watching other games and watching Survivor, he knows that playing too hard too fast is a little dangerous, so he wants to slow it down. He mentions how he, myself, and Melanie had a conversation where Melanie and I had both discussed being early boots in other games. So Seth wanted to try to blend in with that fear and work together to avoid that happening.
Did you have that conversation?
Very quickly. I came into this game being like, everybody's going to know that I was first boot on Real Foot because I want sympathy.
I'm leveraging it.
Yeah, I was like, I want sympathy. These people need to feel bad for me. So I definitely discussed that a lot. Let's see.
I was going to say something, but then I forgot it. Never mind.
We do get an interesting Danny confessional here where people are kind of talking about vibes and their strategies. And then Danny says, oh, Drew wants this group of Drew, Danny, Brady, Seth, Melanie. But I don't really want that group because I don't want to work with Seth and I don't want to work with Melanie. There's so much that wasn't shown. So there was a conversation. The first strategic conversation that I personally had was between myself, Marshawn, and Seth. The three of us were moving our stuff into the tent. The three of us kind of locked eyes and were like, okay, the three of us can look out for each other. So there was that conversation. Marshawn then starts being a little bit like weird in terms of like how he's conducting himself. Like he's like visibly looking for advantages and stuff. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to forget Marshawn for the moment. I'm good with you, Seth. I also have a conversation where me, Danny, Brady lock eyes and are like, okay, the three of us, like we're vibing. The three of us talk very similarly. We have a lot of overlapping interests. Our personalities are very similar. So the three of us lock that in. So when I'm talking to them about it, they're asking like, well, who else do you feel good about? And I'm like, well, I feel good about Seth because I had that other conversation. And then I could just tell like everybody just loved Melanie. So I just like threw Melanie in there as a fifth name to have a 5 out of 9 majority. And I was like, I don't care. Whoever else is fine. So that was that confessional was like, yeah, like us three. And then they're like, well, who else? Because we need a majority. And I'm like, okay, well, what about like Seth and Melanie? And so that was that confessional.
Because that's about the most strategy we get out of your tribe so far. Is kind
There
of
was a lot happening.
Yeah.
I think at this point, Rachel and Kim had gotten pretty close. They had bonded a lot. I know that Melanie was really starting to click with myself and Brady at this point. But as far as I'm aware, from what I know, the groupings it was me, Seth, and then kind of loosely Marshawn, me, Danny, Brady, and then Kim and Rachel had bonded. Tyler was very quiet in the first round. So that's what we got from Chaos.
I mean, so the confessional from Seth saying, I'm worried about playing too fast. I mean, give me a speed gauge from 0 to 100 miles per hour. How fast was the Chaos Tribe moving when it came to strategy?
For me, it was like kind of that situation where you find yourself alone with someone or in a group of 3 or 4 and you're like, so we're all good, right? Like, how are you guys? I feel like
your tribe was more conducive for that because you saw you at one point post game got to see the Order Tribe, right? And I'm post game I got to see the Chaos Tribe, and like your area looks a little bit more open and easy, while the Order Tribe is like, you're like,
I don't know. Getting to see both of the camps, I liked the Order camp better, but it might just be because I was just like, I don't know.
Order is better. Order has better trails for strategizing.
I could see that.
Yeah, because like when you go off on those trails alongside the camp, you can't quite tell what's going on back there.
Yeah. There was not in the first round, I don't think, like a ton of strategy. There were just little conversations, like I said, where you're in a group of people and you kind of look at each other and you're like, so we're good, right? Like, what do you like? My MO is always when I'm with someone that I like or when I'm with a group of people I like, I'll just ask, so how are you guys feeling? And that's always my lead in. If I'm with someone or a group of people I like, how are you feeling? And so there were a couple people, like Melanie actively was not wanting to talk strategy round 1. When I asked Melanie was like, good, I like our team. I was like, how are you feeling like strategically? And we don't need to talk about that right now. Tyler was kind of the same way. When I had a one-on-one or like a small group conversation with Tyler, it was like, yeah, I'm feeling good about our team. Like, I don't think we need to worry about strategy right now. And I'm like, sounds good.
I guess for me, that's always a little worse. So I was like, okay, so does that mean you're talking about that with other people and not me?
Yes, that was a growing concern for me, but I think the Chaos Tribe as a whole was very cohesive. So it was like, we'll just not worry about that right now.
Yeah, and of course, you don't have to worry because winning immunity challenges helps a little bit.
Yes.
So let's jump into that.
Steven's going to run through the immunity challenge while I run to the bathroom, and then I'll be back within 2 minutes.
So this immunity challenge was played in the prior season, and one thing, props to Casey, I enjoyed seeing footage from the last season kind of illustrating how it went. Essentially, players laid out boards, and they could not touch the grass with their feet, and they used these boards, maneuver through the course, collect the puzzle pieces to solve, and they come back and solve a dragon serpent puzzle. And so this is I think a 1-for-1 recreation of a challenge that happened in the All-Star season. And the dragon serpent puzzle is a very difficult challenge. From talking to Casey, apparently I was a little flippant about when describing that challenge last season. Saying, oh, that puzzle looks so easy. So he really was hoping I myself would put myself in the puzzle, which I didn't do because I don't volunteer because I suck. And so I was a plank player. From the Order Tribe, Jamie and Nina step up to do the puzzle. And from the Chaos Tribe, we're going to check my notes right here. It is Drew and Kim, I want to say. Drew and Kim are on the puzzle for the Chaos Tribe. And what's interesting about this challenge is, like, you don't really see, but the tribes take 2 different strategies, right? So the Chaos Tribe, all 7 people go on the planks at the same time, so they form a giant chain of planks to go collect their puzzle pieces, while the Order Tribe, we break up into a group of 4 and a group of 3, like 2 separate sections. And for the most part, it seems like they both kind of got us back at the same time. I don't think it gave us any. I think Order Tribe started a little bit earlier. Drew, I think Order Tribe got the puzzle pieces a little bit faster than the Chaos Tribe, but not by much.
We got back pretty much at the same time, because your tribe split up into 2 different groups, because I think we had 4 planks.
Yeah. So because there was a group of 3, and that was Mackenzie, Little Matt, and me, and a big group, and a larger group of 4, which was John, Big Matt, Riley, and Alex, leaving
Yes.
Jamie and Nina on the puzzle. And for you was you and Kim on the puzzle,
Did
right?
your puzzle solvers volunteer, or was it just like who was left that
They
did
volunteered.
not want to do the other portion?
They volunteered.
Okay. For our tribe, Kim volunteered, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, but I just did not trust Kim to lead the puzzle at that point. So I was like, we had obviously, like, we see a little bit of your tribe talking about strengths and weaknesses. Our tribe did the same thing. That's one of the first things we did when we got everything set up, is we sat in the tent, went around in a circle, talked about like who we are and what we're going to be good at and bad at. I was one of like 2 people on my tribe who was like, yeah, I'm really good at puzzles. And so Kim volunteered. A bunch of people were like, oh, I definitely want to be on this other portion. And they were like, well, who else wants to be on the puzzle? And I was like, I'll do it. I'm good at puzzles. Like, I think I would be probably equally served on either portion. So I'll just do the puzzle. And that's fine.
So, because I remember when you were in Real Foot and you had your own kind of variant of a floor is lava plank building challenge, right? Because I remember seeing you.
My tribe was so slow.
I mean, I saw from Real Foot you tended to take leadership roles, and I saw in this season you took leadership roles, but to much greater success.
Much greater success, much less aggression. Well, there's a part of the puzzle that was cut out that I'm kind of glad was cut, but we'll discuss it in a second.
And so, like, I think the most interesting about the first part of the challenge of the collection of the boards is Mackenzie, Matt, and I go through it very fast, and we get our boards, and we were like, okay, how can we help the remaining players? And one of the things I say let's try to do is block your tribe by laying our boards out, because the rules are a little nebulous. It's not quite sure, can you go over another team's board or not? And so I block your boards. I kind of like, oh, maybe I'll just stand here right between your boards. And Case is like, yeah, you can go over the other tribe's boards. And I was like, oh, well, okay then.
I'm wondering if it would have been allowed for players to stand on the other tribe's board, because I mean, this is a bit much for a first challenge.
Yeah.
But like, if I was like, we have to win this challenge, I would say one of us just stand on their board so they can't pick it up and use it and move it anymore until we need them to come home.
Yeah, and I think, and that was like, like, you could tell us. I was thinking about like, do I just physically impose myself? Sorry, I'm not gonna let you go through, and get a pushing board. And for me, I was like, that's really aggressive.
That's a lot
for the first immunity challenge. And like, so while I was trying, like, if I could use the rules and block them this way, and that's like fair game, I'll do that. But I'm not gonna impose myself and get in a pushing war with Seth right now.
And so for some reason my tribe decides to all stick together in one line. I think there was concern over the weight of the puzzle pieces, because they were not light puzzle pieces.
You saw the scene, we're just loading Mackenzie up with all these puzzle pieces, so
like they were not light pieces, and I think that there was concern about that from my tribe, and so they decided to all stick together, which meant we needed less boards. I think we only used 3 boards instead of all 4. And so eventually we get to an impasse. There's the question asked, like, can we cross the other tribe? We get the answer of yes. And so my tribe is moving a little bit more quickly than yours at that point. So we're able to place that board, cross in front of you, and they're like, sorry. And you say, it's fine, it's just a game. And you're like visibly angry.
Yeah, because I think that the only other good thing my other contribution was to, like, because the 3 of us are done, so I was like, okay, we can't start the puzzle till we have all the pieces back, right? And so that we start solvers. So I was like, look, let's just lay our boards out and expedite the rest of our team getting back. And I thought I was proud of that.
Yeah, I will say that the puzzle pieces got back between the tribes within 30 seconds of each other. Like, you guys might have gotten back, like,
I think I also got yelled at because I took my puzzle pieces and I laid them out in an order for my puzzle maker to start looking at it. And I got griped out for that. I was like, well, you didn't say how I'd bring them back.
So we start on the puzzle. Different strategies going on here. My thing was, what is on the board, I want to only be things that are being actively worked on. Everything else needs to be laid out on the ground. And there's a point, I'm so glad this was cut, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. There's a point, Kim was just like holding like 6 or 7 pieces at all times and like pulling them out, testing them, turning them, putting them back in her hand. There is a point in the challenge where I look at Kim and I say, like, Kim, I love you, but stop holding pieces. Put them down. Stop touching things. Kim was just like moving everything and holding. And I'm like, Kim, stop touching things. Lay them out on the ground. And I laid them, we laid them out on the ground behind us so the rest of the tribe could see. You hear a little clip of me in the challenge saying, if you see something, yell. Because at this point, it's setting in how awfully hard this puzzle is. And so I'm like, I can't do this. To be honest, I felt like I was doing it by myself because
so this was a challenge that's so much backseat driving because everyone piping up for the peanut gallery from the rest of your tribe like, do this.
I told my tribe, I said, everybody be quiet, but if you see something, please yell.
Yeah.
I felt like at that point, Kim was not being helpful. Kim becomes a fantastic resource because once we had everything laid out, it was like, oh, we can kind of see where things need to fit. On your tribe, it looks like all the pieces are laid out on the table. There's a rough outline that's put together very quickly, and then it's more so a matter of which pieces are wrong.
Well, I felt like we were behind you the entire challenge. I was just looking at yours and cheating off of yours. The tribe is like, all right, because clearly they have these parts right. Let me look at theirs and look back at ours. Say, where can I sit? Like, get us to move. So yeah, there was no screens. So I was just looking at you doing yours the entire time. It's like, I feel like we're really behind right now. And it ends up being closer than expected.
Closer, yeah. I don't think I recalled thinking about how close it was. How long would you say the puzzle portion of that challenge went? Because I feel like it was a solid 10 to 15 minutes on the puzzle.
Yeah, I mean, more substantial than the retrieving of the pieces, like any good puzzle is.
Yeah. So ultimately, Chaos wins immunity.
Yeah. My ultimate regret is like, I practiced some of the BC. I practiced one of the Bloomington puzzles from last season. That was on my to practice list. Like cut out and figure out and mess around with. And like, man, had I practiced, I'd be like, put me on the puzzle, coach. I know this already, and that would have been amazing.
Yeah, I practiced. I feel I'm kind of naturally good at visual puzzles, so I just wanted to practice the logic puzzles beforehand. I was not ready for a visual puzzle of this difficulty. But here we are. So we go back to camp, and that's all we get of Chaos for the episode. We don't get any post-challenge Chaos.
Well, because order is what matters here, right? And you're saving some content, some chaotic content for next episode. Besides, I would say what unfolds in the order camp is a little bit chaotic to begin with.
I did just get a text asking me what we had resource-wise at camp. So obviously I went over what we had for the reward. Mm-hmm. Base items that we had going into camp, aside from personal items. Each camp had it was like a 8 to 10 person tent.
Yep.
We got a flint and steel, a machete, a pot with a lid, some rice, some rope.
Oh, a substantial amount of rice, actually.
Yeah, pretty substantial amount of rice, some rope, and then like torch decorating supplies. Is there anything I'm missing?
That seems right, because Casey's philosophy for a Survivor game is he wants his game to be accessible, and he's not going to push the players on the physical elements. I mean, you are outside in the elements, but you have a tent, you have access to some sort of food, right? Like, I was on medication during the game, and so I had to eat every 3 to 6 hours, and so I had power bars. I was eating constantly, which was really weird to do in Survivor game. It was like I'm eating regularly. I mean, they were pretty. I'm gonna say there was liberal in terms of personal items. Seth.
So yeah, personal item wise, it was Casey gave us each those like red string bags that you see. You especially see them at the end of Tribal that everybody like puts their string bag on. It was pretty much the clothes that you're wearing, plus kind of whatever you can fit into that bag in terms of a lot of people brought headlamps, sunscreen, bug spray, a change of clothes. And then Casey's food philosophy is like, bring snacks, like don't bring meals, and it has to all be condensed, including the clothes, the
fit.
sunscreen, the bug spray, into this bag. So like for me, I brought sunscreen. I figured somebody else would bring bug spray because I wanted room for other things. So I brought I was wearing my warm clothes. I had cold clothes. I had sunscreen. I had peanut butter crackers. I had like some almond butter packets, a headlamp, a change of batteries for the headlamp, and flip flops because I was like, I will absolutely not be wearing tennis shoes with socks the whole time.
Yeah, I think it's in this first challenge that my shoes break.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this is we hear this in my voting confessional, but I wore these like beat up old tennis shoes, and like I didn't think they were that old and falling apart, but literally the sole like popped off in the left shoe in the first challenge. Is like, oh, this is no good, and so I begged Casey for duct tape so I could field repair my shoes, and that I'm sure we'll see a snippet of what that looks like in the future.
Yes. So that is what we had at camp. I don't think. Oh, and we each tribe got a tarp.
Yeah,
I just remembered that.
Just shout out to Seth somehow having his entire Batman's utility belt on him for the game. I think he had a book with him and too in like his fanny pack. He had this fanny pack of endless things. And like he was like over. I was like, how do you have this much on you? And I'm so jealous.
Yes. Yep.
I think I got some chapstick off him at some point.
There was a point. I'm pretty confident it was either round 1 or round 2. There was a point that I saw something that was round. It was about this big. It was round, and it was like kind of sticking out, like indented out of the bag. And I was like, Seth has an idol. Seth has an idol. And he like is shuffling around his bag and pulls out a can of tuna. And I'm like, what is going on with this man?
I remember talking about, I think he actually did buy MRE something to eat until like Casey's sister said no, like ready-made meals.
Yeah. What food did you bring, Steven?
Oh, I got like power bars because I was like, I need something that can eat to put with this medicine, and well, might as well make it something substantial given that I'm on this medication.
I was scared to bring in protein bars because I didn't want my stomach to get messed up from like only eating protein bars and rice. So I was like, let me get something that's like a little bit like dense, but also like easy. So like I said, I got almond butter and then like peanut butter crackers.
Yeah. Again, this is weird. It's my first game playing where I'm like, you don't have that 24-hour in, like, I'm really hungry and I can't eat. Yeah. Oh, well, like I didn't have that this game, which was interesting.
Yes. So let's move on. We are done with chaos for the episode. Let's go ahead. Let's do some maybe chaos storylines that we could see developing, and then we'll just finish out with order.
Yeah.
So chaos storylines, obviously we have the Tyler and Seth thing where Tyler thinks Seth played in another game, but Seth didn't. We have Seth not wanting to play too fast, too soon. Danny verbalizes to us that they have been involved in some strategic conversations with myself. Melanie knows who everyone is based on research. Anything else, Steven, that you kind of gathered from chaos this episode?
Looking back at my notes, I think that's about it for the storylines. I mean, like we said, we have an overture of like where the alliances may be forming. But we have nothing really firm or certain yet.
Yeah. I'm interested to see next episode. I would love a deep dive into the strategy of chaos because there were talks that were happening. So
the question is, do they make it to film?
Yeah, we'll see. But let's jump over to order. So we get order kind of going back to camp. Everybody is upset. And I just want to say that I think Casey perfectly captured the feeling of losing the first immunity challenge in a live game. It is depressing. No one knows what to do or what to say. Everyone is scared to throw out names. Everyone just kind of sits around for a few minutes and is like, okay, we're in it. Steven, tell us more about what that was like for you.
So I love because we get back to camp. I love it's just like, what music will he play for us? Oh, he's gonna play the Dota music, and there is no music whatsoever. It is silent as we're kind of remarking, like, wow, like what's gonna be the overlay? And you eventually get this somber music beginning with it, and you're like, and like everyone just feels beat up. I mean, this is a fast game, and going to tribal council so soon, you're like, well, shoot, am I not only going to be the first, am I going to be done like hour 3 or 4 of this game? Now, there is redemption, right? We know that's in play. That's a staple of the series. And so even if you're voted out, you're not necessarily done, but still it's like, okay, here we go. How are you going to begin this? Do you want to recap for May your initial impression of the bounty twists?
Bounty twists, I was like, this is fine. It makes strategizing and grouping up more complicated. I was very mad that I got Kim as my bounty because she was immune at whatever tribal she attended first. But I like the bounty twist as an experiment.
For me, like, I drew John as my bounty, and I tried to use that information as a way to build trust with him, going and say, hey, I want to work with you. I'm going to come to you and say that you're my bounty. I have no desire to actualize it. And so I tried to use it in a productive, positive manner because, like, I didn't want to contort my game around it. Like, I want to be aware of it, but I wasn't going to, like, change how I wanted to vote as a result of it.
I will say, we did not mention this earlier, that the bounty twist, the last time bounties are in play is Final 6, and Final 6 is also the last time safety keys can be used. Because we did not mention that earlier.
So with the Order Tribe,
yes,
the name that gets floated out is Riley's name. That is
Riley, and it seems like that's initiated by Daddy Matt, who's like, sorry, I dropped my pen. Who's like, I'm going to try to rally people around Riley. Riley tells us that she is quieter and is used to kind of being on the outside and knows that like socialization will be a problem. How quickly, Steven, from what you remember, did you first hear Riley's name after coming back to camp? Like, how long did it take to get into the actual action of this is a name?
Forgive me, Riley. I was also throwing your name out before that was the name I felt most comfortable with. So like, I had a good conversation with Riley about fantasy books, but beyond that, we hadn't really had any other discussions. And so I felt that was a name that people could get behind. And so I don't know if I was pushing Matt. I don't think I was pushing as hard as Matt, but that was kind of a name I was also very kind of suggesting and very open with.
It also seems like Matt was kind of like, well, these two people, Nina and
Jamie, are strong players, and wouldn't make sense to go for them now.
They're strong players. They volunteered to be on the puzzle, which is the most visible part of the challenge. Like, let's just leave them alone for a minute. Steven, I did have a question for you because this is something that one of my good friends raised to me. He asked me, Kim made fire really quickly. Is that something that I took a mental note of to use later if I needed to? And I said, honestly, not really. Like, I did not pay attention to that. Was that something that you guys paid attention to with Riley? Like, oh, Riley made fire. Like, this is something that we can use to our advantage, or this is something that I need to like look out for in a potential fire making challenge?
No, that was not something I noted. I mean, let's say Riley is in the final 5 with me or something like that. I think then you're like, I think Riley's good at that. But they don't have a forced fire making in Bloomington. And
we did not know that. We did not know what the format was going to be.
Assumed it was like last season. It was a normal Final 4 votes.
Because our tribe, I remember specifically our tribe being like, we don't know if it's going to be a Final 2 or a Final 3. We had no information about when the merge was going to take place. We did not know what the Final 4. Yeah, we did not know what the Final 4 format was going to be. We didn't know anything.
But I guess I'd never seen a live game do forced fire making at 4.
Let's hope it stays that way.
Let's hope that's why I was comfortable assuming it was not forced fire making at 4. And
well, we'll see.
And then I think I figured that someone else can make fire. I figured there's someone else in the tribe who can probably.
That's my thing. Is like the
not me.
the summer before I played Reelfoot, because I played Reelfoot a year before I played Bloomington, my brother gave me his machete to keep personally, so I have it like on a display thing. And then I bought a bunch of flint and steel and had practiced, but I had not practiced for Bloomington, so I was like, I can make fire, but I'm not. There are people who are going to be better at it than me, so they could do it. But anyways,
I've only ever gone sparks out of the flint and steel. So
back to the last time I practiced, it took me 40 minutes. So I'm not like a fire starting champ. But anyways,
you'll get matches at that point. Don't worry.
Yeah, back to that's another thing that I would like to mention is that for KC specifically in Bloomington, once you make fire for the first time with machete and flint, he will give you either a lighter or matches.
I don't think I realized that.
Because Casey did not know that we made fire until the second round. And he was like, oh, you guys made fire last round? Let me go get you a lighter. Like, that's all you have to do is make it one time. But anyways, back to order. So we see kind of Daddy Matt leading the charge against Riley because he feels a little bit, I guess, defensive of Jamie and Nina for being on the puzzle. Jamie appears, for lack of a better word, a bit distraught at themselves for like, I guess the way that I interpret it was like Jamie stepped up to do something and was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And then like did not win and was like, why did I don't know. That was confusing to me. Jamie was like, I stepped up to do it, saw what the task was immediately internally defeated, and then that led to a physical defeat.
I that wasn't the takeaway I did. I think it's like, I think it sounds like from what looking at my notes, like did a double take at the difficulty of it. It's like, oh, this is gonna be harder than I expected.
Which it was
proud that they stepped up, felt proud they took initiative, but like sucks. It feels very bad they lost and like that they lost like that. And I think generally from knowing Jamie, I think Jamie can sometimes just take things really hard. And when like and it sucks when like you put yourself out there and it doesn't work out. So like so I have done that puzzle challenges and it sucks.
We see specifically Daddy Matt and Mackenzie individually kind of pumping Jamie up, being like, hey, like Matt specifically says like, hey, what if you just like did it? Like, just do it. Like, just play the game. Like, what if you played as an individual and didn't worry about like what other people were thinking about you, kind of thing, which I thought was nice based on the background that we had gotten about Jamie prior in the episode. We also hear a conversation between, I believe the group, it was like Nina, Alex, Riley, Mackenzie, maybe?
Which is this? Which
where Nina is like, where people are kind of like, well, what's the name? What's the name? And Nina's like, I don't know about a name, but Stephen and John, those sneaky boys. Nina's like, I'm not gonna say a name, but here are two names.
And like the best part is about this, like, she's not throwing out our names. She's like doing this. She's doing this hypothetically. Like there could be any reason why we throw out a name.
She's saying, I think what she was trying to say was like, if there was something at the water cooler, they would have found it.
And that's not even like my impression. I think she's just saying like, we don't know what to throw out. It could be of any little thing, and the little thing could, for instance, is like the two went off first. But would we really vote someone off based off of that? Like, I don't think there's any malicious intent behind it. I think she's just like this. She throws out the two names as this hypothetical, and it does her in.
So what it seems like is Nina kind of throws out you and John, and then there's I think the way you phrased it to me was a game of telephone.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us more about that?
So the game of telephone you played growing up, where like you say something to a friend, you whisper in the ear, and they whisper it to the next ear, they whisper in the next ear, and by the end of it, it's morphed into something else. But it's like just how this information gets passed around to the tribe, a little like in Survivor Millennials versus Gen X. Jay has an idol. And you just see everyone telling each other Jay has an idol, right? And so you kind of see the story of like Nina throughout Stephen and John's name kind of get passed down. You can hear it kind of changes a bit as it goes of who was there and who was present. Yep. But it makes its way to like little Nat tells me, I tell John. You see Mackenzie tell John as well.
And by the time it gets to John, it's morphed into someone, we don't know who, someone threw out you and Steven as the targets. It kind of reminds me, honestly, of in Winners at War when like Adam and Denise go off to the water well at the beginning, and it's like people are like, oh, that's a duo. That's a duo. And then John eventually finds out that it was Nina, approaches Nina saying like, hey, have you guys heard any names? And Nina's like, honestly, I really haven't heard any names. All I will say is like, there was mention of you and Steven going to get water early on and being the first people to leave the camp. And John's like, oh, okay. And then John immediately turns around and has a conversation where he's like, Nina threw out my name, but when I asked her, she said she did it.
Well, because so what we don't see is a little later on, like there's a couple of us at the water well, I think, and John comes up and he's like, I need to talk to you, Steven, and you, Nina. And I'm like, okay. So the three of us walk off, and John point blank says, you threw out Steven my name. Why'd you do that? And I'm just there like, I was not expecting this conversation. And like, I don't think, I must not have a tape of that or something, but I was just like, holy smokes. Like, I was not prepared for this confrontation right now with Nina.
That's great. I love John. One thing about John is not here to play. Like, he's here to play the game, but he's not going to deal with like the extraness that people. He's just going to like do what he needs to do and then move on.
And one thing and so you get this watershed of like John and I both know that Nina has floated our name, but it's not sticking, right?
Right. Your exact words were that she floated. Your name was floated and it sunk.
Yeah.
Because it seems like Riley's name is kind of taking over now as the prevalent name.
Yeah. And so, because even with that, I'm like, for me, I was like, I still think I want to vote Riley. But John flips the script and says, if I'm going to push for Nina now. And like, even John's like, I'm a little uncomfortable doing this. I don't do this normally in like the first round, but I'm going to go for it here.
Yeah. Which I think is interesting. I think it's a lot of the decision on whether you push something early on is reading the tribe. And it turns out John read the tribe well. He realized that the vote was not locked in on Riley and it was not locked in on him or you. So he was able to get a little bit more flexibility. It seems like based on what we got, John tried to pull the group together of himself, you, Mackenzie, Daddy Matt, and Little Matt. Is that correct? To be the majority 5 out of 9 to take out Nina, which would then leave Riley, Alex, and Jamie on the bottom. However,
Jamie and Alex are both in on it too, right? So like
right, but the names that John threw out of being the group did not include them. So I will also say somewhere thrown in here, I'm really bad at remembering order of events. So somewhere in there John approaches Daddy Matt and is like, hey, here's this group, John, Daddy Matt, Steven, Mackenzie. Who am I missing? Somebody. You, John, Mackenzie, Daddy Matt, and Little Matt being the 5. And Matt, my only questionable strategic move of the episode is right here where Daddy Matt is like, that's interesting. I'll consider it and get back to you. And I'm like, just say yes, dude.
I mean, so at some point, and I don't think it's this round, but like, I'm talking with John. He's like, do you feel more or less comfortable with Big Matt or Little Matt? And I'm like, I feel more comfortable with Little Matt. He's like, I feel more comfortable with Big Matt. But Mackenzie says Little Matt. And so,
yes. I also think something interesting that happens here is it gets back to Daddy Matt that Nina's name is starting to be floated, and he is not happy about it.
No, he is upset.
He says he's pissed, and then he's like, well, I'm not pissed, but like I'm irritated by it. Because what was portrayed to me, what I got was that he was feeling protective over Jamie and Nina for stepping up and doing the puzzle and felt like they were strong players. And then we kind of get from Daddy Matt like, well, I think the vote's going to Nina now, but I'm voting Riley, and maybe I can play up that like I was left out of the vote.
Don't ask me.
Boy, what? I'm lost.
Because I was talking about it with some other people, like I don't think like you end up getting a 7-2 vote. Seven votes Nina, 2 votes Riley. The 2 votes Riley are from Nina and Big Matt. And to be honest, I don't think knew in the game or figured out or cared who that second rogue vote came from. I don't think Big Matt advertised this coming from him. I think we're all just like, whatever, we just moved on.
Yeah. We get to tribal. It's kind of, I think Casey does a good job in the edit of leaving it up in the air of who it's going to be. Did you feel that there were any relevant answers to questions at tribal? I kind of felt like it was just like a typical first round of tribal where people were being pretty vague with answers.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think I missed it. He says, raise your hand if you feel vulnerable. Everyone but Mackenzie and one other person raised their hand. I didn't catch it that second person.
I think John was the other person who did not raise his hand.
I always raise my hand by default. It's like, I'm not immune. I'm like, this hand's up here.
It might not have been John, but I think based on the shots that we get following that, it was John.
I will have to admit, one thing I want to talk about is Mackenzie's fashion.
One thing I love about Mackenzie is the hairography that we get, because every time she's in confessional or she's sitting or standing and like involved in conversation, anytime anything interesting happens, I love it. It was like when Jamie told her about how they have Mackenzie as their bounty. I was like, well, I don't have to worry about that.
So what cracked me up is I'm sitting next to Mackenzie, I want to say, and so I'm not really paying attention, but it's really bright, really sunny. And like, I think Mackenzie has taken her entire shirt and she's just like gone full like.
Oh, that was. I was like, what is like? It was okay. Let's be very real. Like at this point, I would say it's probably around noon.
Yeah.
At this point, like noon, 1 p.m. It's hot. It was like 90 degrees out that day. Like it was bad. Clear skies, no clouds. Like thankfully, the camp was our camp was relatively shady. But
tribal was not.
It was hot. Yeah, tribal was out in the middle of the sun. It was hot.
And you always forget how long it takes to get people to vote, which is it's always far longer than it should possibly to take people to vote. I always feel like as a game you want to have like 2 voting booths, so you can just like double the speed, because that's where all the time takes, is like the voting.
So we do tribal. We get, I would say, what's the wording I want to use here? More seasoned players we see visibly looking in the voting booth for whatever might be around.
I looked.
Yeah. We get to the vote. It's a 7-2 against Nina. And did you think, were there any voting confessionals that stuck out to you?
I loved having the full voting confessionals as the credits. That was
Me as well.
Phenomenal. Like, and so I love that and hope that keeps happening, because I thought that was a really great way. That's like, what is everyone thinking here? I was joking with little Matt, because I think both of us say we're doing this because John wants us to, so we're voting this way.
Yep.
And so Mackenzie says, I don't think it's the best vote, but it's a majority vote. I'm okay with that. I say John's pushing this, and I'm okay with that. John says, I'm voting for Nina. Riley has no one. I want to scoop up Riley. Jamie says, like, this round is about playing with both the head and heart, but I'm going to follow my head here. I'm proud of you stepping up. Big Matt votes for Riley. Says, I think I'm on the wrong side of the numbers, but whatever.
Yeah, he says like I'm on the wrong side of the number, but like I might be able to use that to my advantage.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
And I'll be curious, because like I have no sense of what John and Riley's relationship in game was. I'll be curious to see if we can catch some of that.
Well, I think that John, in addition to, I mean, you know as well as I do that the moment that you hear that your name is out, you go into like
survival
panic mode. Yeah, survival mode. And I think the combination of John feeling like fight or flighty and like I either have to take out the person who threw up my name or I'm doomed, in combination with, he mentioned earlier, I might be able to work with Riley because I have Riley as my bounty. Like that's just set up for like, okay, this is an easy decision for John. And with John being one of the like 2 people who were being vocal that round, it just led to a pretty straightforward vote from his end. So I don't know. And then Nina tells us it's between me and Riley. Just hope it's not me. And then Nina gets sent off to Redemption Island.
Yeah.
And then we don't get a next time. And next time on.
This is it. We just ran one episode, and that's it for the season.
End of the
then
chapter.
We all wrapped up and called it a day.
It's the end of the chapter. So let's talk about maybe some potential storylines on the Order Tribe.
Yeah. So the storylines we're going to see is John has alluded that he has an ace in the hole. And so we don't know yet what the ace in the hole is. We also are starting to see. So I think Jamie is a big player in the Order Tribe. And kind of, it'll be very interesting to see where Jamie submits relationships with. We know Jamie McKenzie very much. We're showing they're working together, and I think showing how that evolves will be important.
I'm going to challenge you on that. I think that John leading the vote in that round and not including Jamie's name in the majority that he threw out might be interesting. Because
I agree.
Yeah, because Jamie was definitely a significant figure in this episode, but it seems like John, who is arguably leading the tribe, he led this vote for sure, is not seeing Jamie involved in that majority group.
And I mean, what I'll say is so this is where I meant, because like I know Jamie and friends of Jamie had played with Jamie, like Jamie and I were like, we are not gunning for each other. We feel very comfortable with each other. We didn't really strategize or talk much. So I was just not aware of what Jamie was doing very much. And like, I was not in a lot of conversations with Jamie at all. And so I was pushing a lot of me, Little Matt, like me and John, and maybe Little Matt, other people. Like I was focusing a lot on that, but I didn't at the time. I was not, from my perception, seeing Jamie in that. So I had no idea.
Okay. It seems to me, as someone who was not participating in that vote, it seems to me like Mackenzie and John have made themselves the central figures of the tribe.
Yeah.
So I think that will be something to watch moving forward. I think looking at the Order Tribe, Alex had a very quiet episode. I think another storyline to look at would be Riley now has another key.
Yep.
From voting correctly in the Nina vote. So I think that could be something to look out for.
Matt voted wrong. How is he going to bounce back from that?
Matt voted wrong and plans to use that to his advantage. So we'll see how that works. I am very interested to see the inner workings of Chaos.
And we also have the challenge advantages. Will they come to play next episode, given Order lost the first round? Will they want to play it to try to, hey, let's even it out and like get a victory, or do we hold on to that? Does Chaos say, hey, let's play our challenge advantage to really put them in the dirt more?
Yep. Let's see. Did I have anything else? I guess Riley like recovering from getting votes is a storyline that I have written down. Because Riley seems to be very aware that they are socially not maybe doing so hot. So
it was not a surprise. I don't think Riley was not surprised about catching votes at that tribal council.
Right. And that's our episode. That is the contents of the first episode. I'm sure there are little tiny things that we missed, but that's our episode. Steven, one thing that I am really big on, there's a podcast that I listen to. I was not planning on saying this. I don't know what I'm doing. There's a podcast that I listen to called Back to the Bar by Kelly Hyland and Chrissy Lukasiak from Dance Moms. And they recap watching every episode of Dance Moms. And at the end of the episode, they say what their favorite quote was from the episode. So do you have a favorite quote from this episode or a favorite line from this episode? It can be funny. It can be like deep. What are your thoughts?
It's going to be my line in the challenge where I say, it's okay. It's just a game, really bitterly.
That was a good one. For me, it was Marshawn picking up the card and saying, "Milady."
The follow-up is Tyler going, "It's the heart of the cards," and like using that when he draws and picks up his name. That made me laugh a lot.
Yes. So a couple of logistical things. Logistical.
Well, we have to talk about player episode before we.
Yeah, that's what I was going into.
Okay. Lead on.
Is the word logistic or logistical? Logistic. A couple of logistic things.
Logistics.
we are going to be doing player of the episode. We're going to do kind of what Shannon Gus does with her guests when they recap Survivor. And we're going to do players of the episode. We're each going to select 3. They can have overlap. Our top player gets 3 points, second gets 2, third gets 1. And we'll just track kind of player of the episode points through the season. Should we start with our highest rank or our lowest?
Lowest is going to be the hardest for me.
Okay, so let's start at our 3 points. And I'm willing to jump in first.
Please.
My 3-point player of the week goes to John. Not only did John do seemingly well in the challenge, it seems like he's central to the tribe at this point. He not only mitigated his name potentially being out there, but also essentially determined who went out. If John did not give any input this round, a different player would have been voted out. It is that's what I perceived. And John talking about having an ace on the other tribe. John seems very confident. John is easily my 3-point player of the week.
I mean, no surprise, John's also my 3-point player of the week. It is risky pushing and changing a vote in the first round, and John did it and pulled it off. And, it was something players like me were like, well, this seems aggressive, and you kind of note that down. But I was like, I'll roll with it. And you saw from voting professionals, we were willing and amenable to go with it because we wanted to work and go farther with John. And so I think he had the social capital and it didn't damage him. And he was able to pull it off successfully. And so I'm going to give him my 3 points. I think my 2 points is going to go to Mackenzie.
Same here.
2 points to Mackenzie because I think Mackenzie definitely having that immunity and the challenge advantage, for at least it's my perspective, also an episode really puts her up in the center place of the tribe. But we see really positive interactions with her and other players, especially Jamie. We also see her get access to her advantage. And finally, she's on the right side of the numbers as well. I think she cements herself, and again, this is colored from my experience, as the linchpin of the tribe.
In addition to everything that you said, it seemed like all of the group conversations, I would say group meaning 4 or more people, Mackenzie was always physically there when names are being thrown out, whether it was Nina mentioning you and John, whether it was Nina's name being thrown out, whether it was Riley's name being thrown out. Mackenzie was physically there, which is a big thing, like Tyler tells us earlier in the episode. Like you said, Mackenzie has those advantages. She's being included in the majority that was listed out to us. She seems like a central figure in the tribe. And the most important thing for me is in confessionals, she seems to be self-aware. She knows my problems in the past have been being too likable. So I'm going to try turning it down a little bit. It just seems to me like Mackenzie has good reads. So,
and I'll throw out my one. I apologize to the Chaos Tribe. I'm going to give Riley the one.
No way! I also have Riley as my one.
I was tempted to do Jamie, but I think I'm gonna give Riley the one because for someone who was actively being targeted, likely could have gone home. Riley played very cool and collected through it and didn't panic and cause people to say no one said like we need to target Riley because Riley's playing unpredictable and was throwing him against the walls. We didn't like that. Riley stayed cool. Riley collected her bounty and Riley got through the round.
Yeah. In addition to everything that you said, Riley started fire, which is great. I also think that what I was saying about Mackenzie, Riley is also self-aware in confessionals. Riley knows that she is typically in real life a very quiet and kind of outcast person and knows that they need to be aware of that. It seems like Riley was in the know that they were getting votes, and I just feel like Riley has a good trajectory moving forward so long as she keeps up with this self-awareness and is able to kind of dig into it. What it seems to me like right now is that there's that 5 that John listed, and then Jamie kind of tacked on through Mackenzie, and then Alex is being really quiet, and then Riley's kind of the outcast. So I'm interested to see how that develops with the Order tribe.
I am too. I'm very curious to see this from a third party perspective of what is going on in my tribe, because I just have my own limited bias perspective as what goes on next episode.
Yes. So the next episode, before we jump into the last thing that we're going to do here, The next episode will air on this coming Saturday, which is, if I can pull up my calendar, I can see the date, but it looks like I'm
The
not.
13th.
Sure. Yeah, that looks good. My calendar's not working. Yeah, the
Trust me, I'm a
13th
doctor.
at 8 p.m. Eastern. We will get episode 2. We do not have an episode title or anything, or I would speculate. But
$20 a day for me. I don't think I give episode titles, but I don't think I give a good episode titles, but who knows?
I feel like I didn't really give much this episode, so I'd be very surprised if I were to get the episode title next episode. But we will see how order recovers and how chaos progresses. And the last thing that we're going to do this episode, Stephen, if you kind of want to lead us into it while I make sure I'm set up properly.
We are doing in conjunction with Surviving Bloomington, we're doing a giveaway for Surviving Bloomington Order versus Chaos shirts. And I believe there was, correct me if I'm wrong, a fundraising and for players to donate. And we were going to do a drawing for 2 winners with the wheel.
Is it 2 winners?
I don't know. Hold on. Let me check the message. Make sure I'm in the right place.
3 winners. 3
winners. All right. Even better. 3 winners, not 2 winners.
So I have a wheel, and the 3 people that it lands on, who it lands on, not that. The 3 people who it lands on will each get a Surviving Bloomington t-shirt. And I have the wheel up.
All right. I'm going to add it in.
All right. Are we good?
Let's spin the win.
Let's spin to win. I don't know how long this is going to spin. It might be over in 3 seconds.
I've seen Sequester. It takes a little bit. Nope, it's short.
All right, Stacy.
Hey, Stacy! A Surviving Bloomington alum is the first shirt winner. Congratulations, Stacy.
And it's possible Stacy gets another one. I mean,
yeah.
Her name was in there twice, so.
All right. For our second winner, drum roll, please.
Okay.
This one's going farther.
Luke.
Congratulations, Luke. You are our second winner for a Surviving Bloomington t-shirts. Order versus Chaos. Frankly, I need to just go buy one. I need to wear one.
Yeah, same. I'm like, my name's on here once, but if I don't win, like, I need to buy one to.
And if he wins, it's rigged because he's the one who's clicking it right now.
Oh, so true, so true, so true. Okay, let's see who our final winner is. Jordan.
Hey, congratulations, Jordan. We're not quite sure which Jordan this is. You may be the Surviving Bloomington winner, Jordan, but to whichever Jordan you are, congratulations. Enjoy your t-shirt, and you will be contacted soon by
John V. Yeah, John V, I believe, designed the t-shirts and got approval through KC. And so together they are doing this fundraiser, and John V will be contacting the 3 of you soon to get your sizes and like mailing addresses and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I think we're going to wrap up now. I don't think there's anything else to talk about.
An hour and 45 minutes later. Wow. Okay.
It's always a good time when you exceed the episode length.
Yeah. Stephen will be back next week. I assume we're going to stay on the Monday schedule unless something changes. We'll see. Stephen will be back next week. I will be here every other week because of my work schedule. I will be here every other week, but Stephen will be back next week to recap episode 2. I will probably be very active in the comments while I watch it work. But Stephen, anything else to say before we close out here?
Thank you everyone for watching. Again, keep your eyes out for Surviving Bloomington next weekend. There are also a lot of other games dropping right now. I know I need to watch Outlast, Survivor Pennsylvania Gettysburg. I think I'm still following Survivor Angelica, Hexes and Curses? No, Healings and Hexes. I can't remember the exact title. The latest Survivor Angelica season. Plenty of good content out there that help you get that through the Survivor off season.
Yes. Subscribe to Live Reality Games on YouTube. Follow Live Reality Games on Facebook. Same with Surviving Bloomington on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Surviving Bloomington is currently casting for season 7. So go to any of the social media pages for that. And we'll see you around.
Take care, y'all.